Hopefully everyone out there is staying healthy and safe here in the time of the not-T virus. On today's episode, it's a free play. The three of us dive into a range of topics, and as usual, I have no idea what we're going to get ourselves into. So strap in, as if you had a choice, and join us on our first free play of 2020 next on Downloadable Content. Welcome to this coronavirus special of downloadable content. I am Brian, and with me we have Spencer.
Hello.
And we have Ryan.
Hello.
And no Ron. Either Ron. This is a Ronless episode. What the hell?
As long as no T-virus got out, that's all I care about.
I really hope they have not fallen to T-virus or Las Plagas or any of that. I really hope not. I hope they're happy and healthy and are just busy being in isolation somewhere. But in all seriousness, hopefully all you listeners out there are happy, healthy, safe, all of that fun stuff, doing your due diligence. So that is so what we're doing today. We're doing our first free play of 2020, and we've got a plethora of topics to go through. Before we dive in, just want to remind everyone that every single episode of downloadable content can be found on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, as well as our website, dlcpodcast.com. We got a block of episodes coming up, so if you want in on any of the upcoming recordings, be sure to check out the website, click on the upcoming recordings. You can give us feedback, give us ideas. It's all there for you. dlcpodcast.com. All of the different ways to get downloadable content into your ears. Just make sure you wash your hands afterwards. All right. So, the randomizer, before we started airing, chose me to kick things off. So, kick things off I shall. So, with all of us being in isolation, it's actually allowing me to do something that I regularly bitch about and complain constantly to the wife about. And that is actually have the time to make a dent in my video game backlog.
No money.
Don't we all know that?
Like, I keep bitching. Like, I can't bring my Switch to work and just play it when I'm bored. It's because I've got people who sit behind me and my cubicle is arranged in such a way that if all anyone has to do is just peer over and see that I'm clearly not working. So I don't...
Yeah, offices kind of frown on that.
Yes, and not really a good idea for me to be playing video games on the state dime. At home.
I'm sure worse things have been done on the state dime.
But yes.
Much worse.
But it is my pay the student loans job and get my medical insurance job. So I don't really want to jeopardize what I've got there. At home, however...
That's a much different story.
At home... there's no one here. I'm in isolation in my photo studio / game area. So, no one can tell me, no, you can't play that. So it's like...
Well, one person can, but she's pretty good about that.
She's pretty good about that, and she's also in her own room, also working from home. So...
Wow.
So it's great all around. Besides, she's probably watching YouTube videos or documentaries or something like that. So,
That's true. Yep.
So fuck off. So, what I've been just going around, just games that I've recently finally have the time to get back into, and one of them is an RPG that I bought months ago that I'm finally getting a chance to play because I have the time to play RPGs.
Like, right?
like the last few months, maybe the last year or so, I've been playing a lot of platforming games because platforming games are very good about being able to play in quick bites. Like, you can play a level or two or three, and, if you were on a break or something, and then just put it away, get back to work, whatever. RPGs, I personally, when I sit down to play an RPG, I want to carve out a block of hours to play because they're very narrative driven, there's very story driven, there's a lot of level grinding, and it's not just something that you can sit down for 15-20 minutes and do because, save points, if the game does, some JRPGs don't have autosave functions, which is a crime. It's 2020. Get on that.
Not to mention that, there are some games where you could have a scene last for more than 20 or 30 minutes.
Xenosaga, is that you?
Yeah.
But the game that I've really finally gotten a chance to dive into is Dragon Quest XI: Echoes of an Elusive Age. And it's a game I bought months ago, and I've been wanting to play it because I loved the Dragon Quest series. I enjoy it very much. I love that for as long as the series has been around, it still manages to... It feels like home in a way because there's a lot of familiarity. For if any of you have ever played a Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior game, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, the whole series is very much... It reminds me a lot like the Pokemon series in the sense that they do change things, but it's very small changes that, like, over time, like, if you look at the first couple of games compared to the, later couple of games, there's, like, a huge difference in gameplay and presentation, but, like, if you, like, play game to game, it's very minuscule changes that they, like, change to the series as a whole. It's a very comforting thing to come back to, knowing, like you said, you get exactly what you're expecting every time.
It's, and the art style is very familiar. It's Toriyama. The music has been done by the same composer who I'm gonna look him up now because I know I'm gonna butcher his name. He's about 9,000 years old at this point. Koichi Sugiyama. Again, probably butchered that, but he's the sole composer for Dragon Quest, and he's 88, and he's still writing music for Dragon Quest. So it's like John Williams here. Just keep going and going.
Well, he's not really doing a ton of new stuff, to be fair.
No, neither is John Williams.
I swear they got the Energizer Bunny attached to them, even though they're siphoning it now.
And, the Dragon Quest XI for the Switch gives you the option to play with the English dub with English voice acting or Japanese voice acting. It also gives you the option to play the fully orchestrated soundtrack, or the MIDI version of the soundtrack.
Nice.
It also gives you an option to play the game in its normal 3D mode, or you can play the game in 2D mode with sprites, and everything is like you're playing a Dragon Quest game of old. With like the classic menus and the the world maps, and which I think if I like this game, what I might end up doing is I'll play the entire game in in the default 3D mode, and then play it again, but all in 2D.
Yeah, well, see, that's one of the things that I always felt was missing from the whole series is like replay value. They are long games, but usually after you played them once, there's not a ton of extra content that you can do. So giving you the option to have like that kind of change is really nice, because I think, like I said, I think that's been one of the things that the series has been lacking.
Yes, and like I don't know I bought it for the Switch, so I do not know off the top of my head if there are any additional differences between the Switch version and the original that came out. I think it was last year. So I'll have to check that. But that is a game I'm finally able to crack open, since now that I have the hours to devote to playing to a JRPG. Another game that I'm playing it's on PC, but you can play this on pretty much any of the current gen consoles, because this is probably a game that does cross-platform beautifully. It's a free-to-play game called Dauntless.
I've heard of that one, but I haven't actually gotten the chance to play it.
Dauntless is in that sort of realm of Monster Hunter type games. It's on the Epic Game Store. If you're on a PC, it's also on PS4, Xbox. It's on the Switch, and again, it does cross-platform beautifully. Like before it was made available to the consoles, it was on PC while it was in open beta, and I played it. I'm like, okay, free game. I don't have to worry about throwing money at the developer and then not seeing a completed game out of it. But then it went into it's out of beta. It's now you can purchase it. Well, again, it's free. The only things you pay for are cosmetics. If you want to throw real money at the developer, it's Phoenix Labs, by the way. If you want to throw money at them, you can, and you can purchase like cosmetic skins. It's not pay to win, which I like. If you're going to have a in-game store with the option to give real money, I'm glad that it's like cosmetic, it's skins and cosmetic looking things.
Yeah.
It's not like buy to level up faster.
Yeah, no.
That's always nice.
Yep.
And it does a beautiful job again with the cross-platform play. Like I spent many hours playing it on PC, but then I was like, okay, my PC is currently doing some maintenance. I want to play this game. I got it on the Switch, and when you log onto it on your Switch for the first time, it'll ask if you have an Epic Games account so that you can link the two and not lose your progress.
Nice.
So I was basically able to, once I linked the accounts together, just like, okay, you're at level so-and-so, and here's all your things you've collected, and they all sync up. So later on, I'll jump back on my PC, and I'll have not lost my progress, and I really, really like that. It's the first time I've played an MMO of this particular caliber, and I really enjoy it. And again, it's a great way to kill several hours, or even just maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, because every time you go on a hunt, it's between 10 and 20 minutes. So if you're looking for just a quick 1 or 2 hunts, fine. If you want to sit here and play with a bunch of friends for hours at a stretch, it's good too. So And then, of course, I think the third game I've been playing while in isolation here is Resident Evil 4, and that is in preparation for the episode that's coming after this one, in which Spencer will be our resident expert, and
I'm very, very excited.
But
our resident expert here as we talk about our 15th anniversary of Resident Evil 4. It was my feel old moment, but.
Yeah, and of course, also on that note too, this coming Friday, the remake of Resident Evil 3 comes out.
Yes, as of this recording, it's March 29th. Obviously, the Resident Evil 3 remake will have been out for about a couple of weeks when this episode goes up, and you bet your ass. That is, I have that wish listed on Steam as a day one purchase.
Nice.
Nice. I will probably be ordering it the day it comes out. I don't know if I'm going to pre-order it or not, but I'm probably going to be ordering it at the very least.
I don't have any of the current gen consoles except for the Switch, so PC is my only option, but I am downloading that. Resident Evil 3 is my favorite of the entire series. I'm going to get scared shitless by Nemesis. I'm going to love it.
Oh, yes.
I am going to absolutely love this game. But yes, Resident Evil 4, I've been going through. First time I've played the game in about 4 years, so not only have I been playing that, I've jumped onto the streaming bandwagon.
Welcome, brother.
Oh,
Yeah, as I found out yesterday.
you were watching my stream last night, my lone audience member. So,
Yeah. But it was very fun because I caught you when you were doing like the end part with Leon, and then you started up with separate ways, and it's like, yeah, this is interesting.
So that's what I have been doing in the games I have been playing in isolation, and that is my first thing to chat about as we start off this free play. So I will now give it over to Spencer and or Ryan. So Ryan, odds or evens?
Why not odds?
It's evens. Spencer, you get the next topic.
Of course.
That's okay. All right. So, with it, a nice segue here, we're talking about remakes with like between Final Fantasy VII and Resident Evil 3 coming out in like close,
5 days.
proximity. Yeah, less than a week of each other. And we had, the Resident Evil 2 game come out last year. It's just got me to thinking, like, what other games really not only deserve to be like remade in this kind of fashion of like, complete overhaul, both graphically and gameplay wise, with like either additions or changes to the story. Like, I'm talking about like a full complete remake, not like porting the game or like, giving it an HD reskin or whatever. I mean, like, a bottom up like remaking. And for me personally, there are a couple of titles that I can think of, but I'd like to hear your guys' opinions first before I go delving too deep into my own.
I think I probably know one of yours. But let's see. For me, one that jumps out to mind was an RPG that I find criminally underrated, and that was Legend of the Dragoon. Because, I know it sort of gets a bad rap for being this sort of generic RPG, but it was one of the first ones I ever played, so it sort of has that sort of sentimental value for me. And
I mean, we did a whole episode on about with Legend of Dragoon.
We did last year, so that is something that comes to mind. Another one is probably one of my favorite horror games, and that is Eternal Darkness.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Eternal Darkness, because that was one of those games that got critically acclaimed up and down. Every publication, magazine, online, it was like 9s and 10s all across the board, and nobody bought it. No.
Well, to be fair, that was like a late GameCube title, right?
It was a late GameCube title, and it was an exclusive GameCube title.
Yeah.
It was like Nintendo's first real major push at trying to become a mature developer or mature.
The GameCube has so many games like that on it, just like these hidden gems that like nobody played because of the fact that nobody bought the GameCube at all.
Yeah, I mean, like my Twitch handle and my stream handle, eRoyvis, that's taken from the character of Edward Royvis in this game. He's one of my favorite characters, and just, Silicon Knights, for all of the shit that its CEO did, For all of these, there are reasons why I call Dennis Dyack the Max Bialystock of video game developers. If you're a theater nerd, you will get that reference. But Eternal Darkness was such a good game, and I would love to see that resurrected. I don't know how. I mean, Silicon Knights is long since dead, but the question was, what games would I like to see get a full bottoms-up remake? And so I gave out 2.
That's fair. I'm not asking for legitimate, channels for this to work, because that's just a nightmare to even, that's
right.
We don't want to waste our time doing that.
Right. You're asking for a wish list.
For me, one of them that it and its sequel deserve to get a remake. And I know, Brian, you've talked about this before, and I totally agree. Parasite Eve, to me, fully deserves a really good remake. Because playing through that, it's just like, I love how the story goes, and I love how things work. It's just that the graphics deserve so much of a polish up and onto the newest engine that's come out, because it would be freaking not only terrifying but also amazing at the same time. Just getting to see the monsters that you go against, our main heroine, and just all the things that happen around with that. It would be freaking amazing to see that in these newer engines that have been coming out.
Well, just to go further on that, Ryan, I think we can argue that any PS1 game would need a graphical overhaul.
Yeah,
that
pretty much goes without saying. Just anything, not even just PS1, just from that era.
Yeah,
that
right.
that gen of gaming needs the most graphical upgrade out of any gen, in my opinion, except for maybe pre-NES games.
Yeah, your sprite-based games are fine, but if you're talking about any PS1 game that we want to get a full bottoms-up remake, the graphics, I think, if you're talking about a PS1 original, is a given.
Yeah.
Right.
To speak to that, actually, the producer, I think either producer or director of the RE2 and RE3 remakes, tweeted out that he has interest in doing Parasite Eve.
That I did hear about, and it's it's one of those things that I'm like, well, I know we've got Resident Evil 3 coming out, we got the Final Fantasy 7 remake. It's come on, please put Parasite Eve in there somewhere. We desperately want that.
I'm curious though, Spencer, to see if he's interested in doing a remake of Parasite Eve. He's gonna have to chat with Square, so it's I don't know how. I mean, I would love to see it. I mean, I love Parasite Eve. I'm just curious to see, because that Parasite Eve is a Square property.
Well, I feel like Square Enix will be slightly more applicable towards remakes after Final Fantasy makes them $18 trillion during this crazy recession we're going through.
Right.
Whatever the sales figures are going to be, because honestly, it's insane. I have, being part of the speedrun community, there's tons of people who are going to get that. And a lot of people are talking about how they're not going to be able to get the game day one if they buy it physically, because they can't keep up with the demand based off the limited shipping going on with everything with the virus.
Mm.
And the other thing too with Parasite Eve, especially, I could see them with the same way that they're doing the Final Fantasy 7 remake, them switching between the real-time and turn-based combat, because that could totally be a thing that they'd also incorporate with Parasite Eve, same thing as with Final Fantasy 7 remake.
Yeah, no, that would actually be pretty smart.
It would be, especially with some of the enemies that you have to go against with Parasite Eve.
I think that's one of the better ways to incorporate new and old fans of a game like that, is to give both ends of the spectrum. Somebody who's preferring older gameplay can use the turn-based as gradual learning curve, while someone who's younger or newer to gaming and hasn't played that game can just play the current gen, quote unquote, way.
Right.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about learning an older system that's going to be a little bit more complicated, because that's part of what makes turn-based gameplay so fun.
It's true.
Do you have any others for Spencer? Or you want? Is he good to go?
That's the only one that I could actually think of off the top of my head.
Okay.
Well, okay, so the one that really got me thinking about this topic, I was watching a friend play through Chrono Cross for the first time, and just thinking about how this game could just desperately use that kind of remake, both in the sense that, like, with the number of characters in Chrono Cross, it's so limited because, you know, the game's already a 3-disc game, and a lot of the characters are kind of like brushed aside at points of the game just because there's not enough room to fit like 45 characters worth of character development over 3 discs worth of gameplay.
Yeah.
So being able to, like, you know, do that, expand on that, you know, obviously, like we were saying, any PS1 game is going to desperately desire a graphical update, and, you know, I would say that Cross's graphics are probably the weakest point of the game, which is not really saying much considering how great the rest of the game is. As well as the fact that, you know, just having that, like, this game has no release besides its original release. If you either get it on PS1 or you don't get it. So, like, having more people have access to this amazing game that a lot of people haven't tried, I feel like would really be awesome. And it's just, it does get a lot of understandable criticism for its lack of connection to Chrono Trigger, and then what it does. It's what it makes its connections. I don't want to spoil it, but, like, it's still on its own a fantastic game that shouldn't be, like, left to the, you know, history books, basically.
I can see that. I mean, when I played Chrono Cross before I even knew there was a game called Chrono Trigger. So, and I quite enjoyed it. I was back in the time where I had just finished, like, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9, and was looking for another Square game to play, and this one caught my eye in a Best Buy, and I don't recall it ever saying on the box art, or if it did, I missed it entirely, that this was the sequel to a game. Imagine my shock when I eventually played Chrono Trigger for the first time in college and went, oh, that's what that reference, oh. It all
Just for clarity's sake, it does say in the, like, on the back of the box art is, like, after, you know, the events of Chrono Trigger. So it does say it, but it's not like it's not on the front of the cover. It's on the back cover. So that's, you know.
Yeah.
As a kid, you're not like, oh, let me read everything. It's just like game.
Yeah.
Game
and for me, cheap game. At the time, like, I can afford this. It was probably near, like, it was like probably a greatest hits, and I'm like, oh, $20.
It's like, wow.
I can afford this. And yeah, to your point, Spencer, it was only released on PS1. It did get a PSN store release on PS3.
Bleh.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, whatever your thoughts about that are, if you have a PS3, it is available. Spencer puking notwithstanding.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, that's fine, but, you know, for a game of its caliber, it shouldn't, you know, like, how many games do we meme about getting, like, 50 releases or whatever, and then games like this, like,
are shrouded in obscurity forever.
Yeah, you know, this isn't like one of Square's, like, hidden gem titles that, like, nobody's ever heard of. Like, it's one of, you know, I don't know. I have, like, a personal vendetta against Square's, like, inability to, like, further a franchise as quality as Chrono is known as, but that's an entirely different topic for another day.
Yeah.
That's its own episode right there. Just
Final Fantasy.
that just is like on today's episode, Spencer shits all over Square for the next 2 hours. Enjoy.
Base.
And that would totally actually be a valid thing to do for an episode, is the sad part.
You know what grinds my gears? All of Square Enix. Okay.
Okay, so the second one that I have is a game that a lot of people know about and probably have played at some point, but I think would also really benefit from a full remake is Earthbound.
That one. Yeah, that's a really good one.
I think having a 3D graphical upgrade of that game would be great. It's one of the few Super Nintendo titles that I feel like doesn't really blow you away graphically. A lot of that has to do with the direction of art that they went with the game. Making it look very childish and stuff like that is understandable, but at the same time, when you're comparing it to other games that came out within the same year or a year later, like, FF6, Chrono Trigger, Mega Man X, on and on. Basically late SNES titles, it doesn't compare, and I feel like that would definitely help give it that extra notch, and then being able to update the combat, having it be a little more modern, because Earthbound is basically Dragon Quest II combat system, which is an NES title. The only real difference is the rolling HP, which is an interesting mechanic, but not something that really defines the gameplay by any stretch of the definition. And then now that people are way more accepting of enemies on screen versus random encounter battles, that fits right into Earthbound's encounter mechanics. Not to mention the soundtrack is amazing, and hearing that fully orchestrated would be hilarious. As difficult as that would be, probably from a rights acquirement standpoint, but if we're not going to get Mother 3, we should at least get a better version of Mother 2.
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it too, there is one other game that I think does kind of deserve, well, not necessarily a remake, but bringing it up more to current, again, engine stuff and whatnot, because this one originally also started, I believe, back on PC back in the late 90s, and, well, I personally think that Half-Life 1 kind of also deserves that whole remaster and stuff like that as well, because I don't know if you guys knew about this, but a new game called Half-Life Alyx actually just recently came out.
I saw that.
And I think that Half-Life 1 kind of deserves it. I won't say remake, but at the very least remaster, because from what I had heard, it kind of helped bring standards up for believe first person shooter and stuff like that. Half-Life 1 was the one that actually set the bar for what first person shooters should really end up being, basically.
Good luck convincing Gabe Newell, but
that's true.
But stranger things have happened. I mean, this is a wish list. Going back to Earthbound for a sec there, Spencer, did you hear about the game that started off as a Mother 4 fan game and has now become its own game called Oddity?
I think I know what you're talking about, but I haven't gotten a chance to really delve too deeply into it. There's a lot of Earthbound inspired games that I desperately need to try out, Undertale and other titles like that. I going back to what you were saying about your topic and how you have used this time to catch up on your backlist. I don't have one, so my backlist is more games that I don't own that I should play versus games that I own and haven't played. And that's that uprising of games is definitely something that I need to take a look at now that I have a more modern setup and can actually get access to those things.
Yeah, there's a game, I actually read about it in the latest, one of the more recent issues of Game Informer, that there's this game, there was this company that, or this group of fans that were starting to make a fan-made game that would be Mother 4. Because fans of the Mother series, they keep hounding Nintendo for a new game, and they're like, no.
To be fair, we've only gotten one. There's three of them, and
there's three of them.
So I think that while I agree that a lot of the time fan bases can be unreasonable and borderline insane, I feel like people wanting more Earthbound is not the most ridiculous thing to ask for.
Oh no,
Mother.
No. So So this group of fans started to develop their own fan game that would be Mother 4, and I am so shocked Nintendo did not catch wind of that and, sick their lawyers on them, because we all know how Nintendo can be the fun police. So, as this project got more and more involved, they realized that it was starting to become its own separate game. So it's called Oddity, and it takes a heavy inspiration from the Mother series, but it uses original characters, original gameplay mechanics, things like that. It's not out yet. It was just a little preview in Game Informer talking about this. This has been in development now for about 10 years. So just good
to know. I will take note of that. I'll definitely look into more of that.
So
is it? You said it's out?
No, it's not out. There was a little article about it in one of the more recent issues of Game Informer, and it's called Oddity. And apparently there's a teaser that's out for it.
Oh, okay.
So that was just a little add-on to that Mother discussion there. So anything more? Sure. Anything more, Spencer, on your?
Well, just to say about Ryan's other one, I personally have no experience with the Half-Life series. I didn't grow up with a computer, so all those games just kind of eluded me. I didn't have a computer of my own until I was in college, and at that point, I was just too deeply entrenched in console gaming to really dive into the PC market. I had a pretty low-key Toshiba laptop that I was using only for school purposes, and this was mid-2000s, so of course using it to download all sorts of movies and TV shows that I shouldn't have been, but that's how did that happen? It's just a franchise that first-person PC shooters are a franchise that I have very little experience with overall, and it's again like I was saying, I have my backlog is of games that I need to play that I haven't, not exactly games I own.
Well, it's like I was gonna say, it's like I was the same for the longest time. I was the same as you, Spencer, just strictly console gaming because I didn't have a PC for shit, and I was like that until a friend said, you can get an Xbox controller and hook it up to your PC. What? Because that was my biggest hurdle I was like, no, I'm not going to do keyboard and mouse. I'm not going to relearn how to walk. Because I'm firmly entrenched. I am familiar with the controller. Don't make me do keyboard and mouse. And then somebody said, there's a USB controller for Xbox. So, what? And then I downloaded Steam, and oh god, I have fallen down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that was never a big reason for me not to. It's really just been the fact that I didn't have a PC that really could run games that were relatively modern.
Oh, so, yeah. I mean,
up until once I got my streaming PC, of course, but I've just been I take it slow. I don't buy games until I beat the one that I have kind of set up.
Again, I was like that too for the longest time, and then finally, for the first time in my life, I had something called disposable income. And then somebody said Steam sale, and oh god, now I have so many games that I want to play and will play, but they're just looking at me like, when are you going to install me?
I'm gonna have to do a stream one weekend where I just do a TED talk about how to properly not buy your wallet's worth of weight in games every month because Steam's telling you to, because they're saving money by buying it.
Oh no, I realized it was getting to be a bit of a problem, and then so now the only time I ever buy games on Steam now are basically when you have the huge sales, when it's this game is 95% off. Oh, okay, I've got 37 cents lying around. I can afford this. And again, the very, very rare day one release like Resident Evil 3, which is about to hit, so.
Right, yeah. No, I mean, that's the one thing that I'm gonna have to start adjusting to, is like when new games come out that I actually do want to get. Like I would get FF7 if I had a PS4, but I can't justify buying a PS4 right now, obviously.
Yeah,
so
and I can't just justify giving Square money for part of a game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a full game, but it's not the full story, which is like their argument. Like, oh, it's a full title, it's just only about Midgar.
And I go, yeah, go on, give me another one. I'm not going to shell out $3 jillion for the...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like,
no, I have the original. I know how the story goes.
But, no, those were the two that I pretty much had. To say one I don't think needs to be done, it is Chrono Trigger. Much to everyone's surprise, I actually don't believe that it would gain as much as other games could gain, just because I think that the visual style for Chrono Trigger is like primo already. I don't think it obviously it would look nice in 3D, but I don't think it does. I don't think it needs to be upgraded. I think the game looks great on its own. And then, the same, like, I don't know how combat would work, seeing like how a 3D combat based game would work with Chrono Trigger, like with the dual text and everything. Like, would they just take that away? Would they alter it to make it like not as applicable? I feel like it has more to lose than it has to gain by being remade in a full capacity like that.
I kind of felt that a little bit like that when they did a Final Fantasy IV for the DS. how they turned it, they made it 3D.
Yeah.
And yeah, I can certainly see that, because yeah. Okay, well, was that it for your first, Spencer?
Yeah.
All right. So, Ryan, on to you. And hey, we're moving along swimmingly. We're going to have a nice first half. So, yeah, everyone's going to get a second.
Nice. Oh, boy, here we go with mine. Mine is, I told you this before. The game I have been working on has been giving me Stockholm Syndrome. The game itself is a more recent one, and it's like, I think it's also multi-platform as well. The game is called Control. It was done by Remedy Entertainment and published by 505 Games. So Control is basically, I call it Resident Evil meets if you've ever heard of like the I guess it's technically a creative writing series, but it's also been made into an indie game, Secure, Contain, Protect. The reason why I say this is because the premise of Control is that you are the person you play as, her name is Jessie Faden, and she becomes what is called the director. So the setting is basically in this building they call the Oldest House, and you have to investigate and go figure on this, a government sector called the Federal Bureau of Control. It is weird. So the reason why I say that this game is like Resident Evil meets Secure, Contain, Protect is because it very much has the same game mechanics as Resident Evil. So the whole thing of it's a third person action shooter basically. And just like with the Resident Evil series, you have to kill it. Well, I called the enemies are possessed basically by this otherworld entity called the Hiss, which is a really weird entity. And just like with Resident Evil, you have to kill these damn things, and it's very much like almost like a horror action video game is what I'm gonna call it. So now we get into the reason why I also say it's part of like what's called Secure, Contain, Protect. For those who are not familiar with Secure, Contain, Protect, it's basically like this whole creative writing thing where they take these, it could be objects, people, all sorts of different things, and they write these really weird things saying that they have these weird powers, they do these weird things when you get to them and stuff like that. That's basically what happens with a lot of stuff with control. What you're trying to do with control is, well, one whole section of it is like the main game where Jessie is investigating the Federal Bureau of Control because her brother was taken there, and it was due to an incident that happened with these I call them otherworldly beings that you're dealing with, and you get a weapon that's called the service weapon, which is this supernatural weapon that has different modes to it, and it allows you to basically take out your enemies and stuff. The other fun part with this too is that you also get different abilities. So one of my favorite, you start off with my favorite abilities to use is launch. So it's like telekinesis. Basically, you telekinetically take control of an object and just launch it at an enemy. You also get to do one of my more favorite things too, as well, is seize control of an enemy once you get it down to a certain amount of health. And then you also get to do you also get levitation, you get shield, you get quite a few other things as well, health, energy, stuff like that, because you need to use energy in order to use some of these abilities as well.
It sounds a little Bioshocky, almost.
In a sense, it is in a sense almost like Bioshock too. So it's kind of like combining Resident Evil, Bioshock, and Secure, Contain, Protect all together in one kind of thing, if you ask me. Now, the other interesting thing about this is that you have these two different things what are called objects of power and altered items. So these things have supposedly been taken over by this otherworldly entity called the Hiss, and the Hiss is basically like it's an entity that controls your mind basically, and when it does that, it kind of turns basically like security guards and stuff that are like supposedly employees of the Federal Bureau of Control into these different like kind of monsters and stuff. So you get some of the more interesting ones I've gone against are Hiss soldiers, Hiss charged, which are basically these floaty things that if you don't kill them before they get to you, they explode and take out a chunk of your health. Then you also get these I don't know. Well, what they basically are is they're Hiss controlled soldiers, and they float, and they are a pain to kill. Well, one of my more favorite things to do with it is sometimes they like to these Hiss-controlled enemies also launch objects at you. Well, one of my more favorite things to do is you can actually mid-air using your own launch ability to control those items and then do a return to sender on them, basically.
Nice.
So that's always a fun thing to do.
So you mentioned that you're feeling a bit of Stockholm syndrome on this game. So what is it? So what is the love-hate relationship?
This game, I love the plot, but I've died so many times from this game, I've lost count. So let me tell you why this game can be a pain in the ass with it. So the first thing, the mechanics are awesome, but they're a double-edged sword. The reason why is because shield, you may have a decent amount of health and you can upgrade it as you go through, but as you progress further on in the game, the enemies also get stronger. And as the game says, yeah, this isn't a game where you can duck behind something and just shoot it out. The game clearly says, yeah, you need to keep moving in order to keep from getting hit. And I still can't fully get that down with some of these enemies, just because in order for me to shoot at these enemies, I need to do like a good lock on, and you don't always get that chance to do it because some of these enemies are launching projectiles that take out a bunch of health on you.
So stealth is not the way to go here.
No way. It's basically like they're saying, yeah, there's a reason why we give you levitate, seize, shields, and launch. There so that you can use them against the enemy. Stealth does not work in this game, not by a long shot, especially when you're going against certain what I call boss level enemies, because these enemies, they deal massive chunks of damage to you. In fact, one One enemy that I keep on dying from, and it's not necessarily because the enemy itself is hard, it's because the area where you are fighting it is an area that changes on you constantly. And what I mean by with that is that you're on this I want to say this arena kind of area, and this enemy, when it attacks with I want to call them like tendrils or something like that, it takes chunks of this arena out with it as well. So you really have to be careful, and I've died many times because of this, because it opens holes that you don't even realize are there, and then you go and fall right through the holes. Because another thing with this game, it does not let you know where the boundaries are. So one of the things that I've fallen prey to is I could be using levitation, and levitation eventually wears out. And if I'm not in a certain area with levitation, if I'm in a certain area with levitation that's not near ground and I don't even realize it, guess what? Back.
You just wily coyoted your way out of the level. So...
Yep, basically. But I like it. I do like it though, because the premise and plot of it is really interesting. So as I was saying before, Jesse is investigating the Federal Bureau of Control, and they're talking about the objects of power and the altered items, and these are ones that have been corrupted by the hiss and stuff. And it's when you go and fight against them that it's interesting, because they look like ordinary objects, but it's trippy and weird some of the ways that you have to encounter and fight these objects, because it's like these objects alter the surroundings around them, and then they also alter their form as well when you're fighting against them. So they may look normal objects, but when you fight against them, they are the weirdest looking freaking things in the world.
A game where you face nothing but mimics.
Yep, basically.
Ah!
But yeah, it's interesting to do it. And then the other cool thing about it is that within the building that you're in, and it's called the oldest house, which is where this entire game takes place. This building, it's like basically like almost like a skyscraper kind of building, but the inside of it is just it transports you to there are different sectors, different areas and stuff like that, and you would swear, like, you would think that it's a very small area. Nope, this building has pocket dimensions basically.
Oh, so it's a TARDIS.
Pretty much, yeah.
The entire game takes place inside of a TARDIS. All right, and it's full of mimics. Good.
Yep.
Good.
And the other reason why I say it's a Stockholm syndrome on me too is because I sometimes hate how many times I have to go against these enemies, because it's like I didn't realize where enemies were respawning, what the enemies were, how you had to take them down, and you had to do certain things also to take down some of these enemies. So it's not just like, oh, you can just shoot and fire at them. No, you have to have strategies to take down some of these enemies, and there are also puzzles involved with these enemies as well. So it's one of those games that's like, I like it, but it's gonna drive me insane at the same time as I keep going through.
Well,
and I also found out too that apparently there's an expansion onto it as well after I get done with the main game. So yeah.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be Dark Souls. It could be worse. It could be Dark Souls.
Yeah. At least in this one, it's not nearly when I first started the game, it took me a while to actually get down how the combat system works and how you actually have to fight against a lot of these enemies. But once I finally got down, it's just like, I love how the upgrades work, but oh my god, some of these enemies. It's like, are you seriously trying to just make me do suicide missions at this point?
Well, yeah, it's like I was never really any good at stealth games. It's amazing that I've managed to get through Metal Gear Solid. Because my Metal Gear Solid, I'm just like, nope, I'm just gonna brute force my way through.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I have to do for Control, is like literally you have to brute force your way. You have to like use a combination of your abilities and stuff. it's the game basically forces you to use these new abilities and stuff like that, and you don't just get these abilities automatically either. You have to go looking for some of them as well, and this is one of the few games that's like, I literally have to use the guide for this, otherwise I'm going to miss important things, and that's going to get me killed multiple times when I don't want to die. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good at brute force, not so much the stealth, so this might be a game that might eventually be up my alley someday, but...
You'd enjoy it too, because they talk... It goes really deep into, like, the lore and stuff. Because this game, there's also like, you can collect reports and stuff. You can collect so many different things. It literally, you listen. There's also as the director, you also have what's called the hotline, and that's with like the former director, and he basically tells you different things about like what happened when the Hiss invaded, what's been going on with his staff, and all that kind of stuff. So it's basically you're part of a bureaucracy within the FBC, but at the same time, because you're the director, it means that, oh yeah, you also have to fight these damn things, and they are a pain in the ass to kill.
Oh good, bureaucracy, because that's what I need to relive my job.
Right. But no, it's enjoyable. It's a game that's like, you really need to upgrade your stuff. Basically, you need to find really good mods for weapons. You need to get as many upgrade points as you can, because otherwise this game will kill you very easily if you do not learn how the combat system works with it. It's one of those games that's just like, yeah, some of these games, the combat system's easy, just do this and this and this. With Control, nope, you will learn. You are doing a trial by fire, and if you do not learn from that, you will die.
Soviet Russia game control you.
Right.
All right. Well, cool. Glad you're enjoying the having a love-hate relationship with a game. I mean,
very much.
I'm sure we can all relate to at least a game or two like that. So
yes,
it's awesome. Well, good. So we've gone around once now from everybody, and we've got time, so we're gonna, on our second half, we'll do one more from everybody, and so we'll continue staying in isolation, and but you'll have a few minutes of music to listen to, and when we come back on the second half, more stuff that we're just gonna throw out there in the ether for you all. So you are listening to the first free play here of 2020 on downloadable content with Spencer, Ryan, and myself. We'll be back. full isolation episode of downloadable content here on our free play. We're all still here. I don't think anyone got the contagion over the break, but, you know, stranger things have happened. So, we are going to go around the room again. One more from everybody, since we had a good first half, and we've got the time. So, topic 2 for everyone. I am not going to go first, so I'm going to go with Spencer and Ryan here. So, this time, Spencer, odds or evens?
Even.
It's a 4. You're first.
Okay. So, in the spirit of talking about what we've been playing recently, I had been waiting for a while to be able to get a 3DS because I wanted to play the Shovel Knight collection on it.
Yes!
So that's what I've been up to during this whole event, and I've almost beaten it. I have of the Shovel Knight part. I'm at the last level, the second half of the tower
of the Enchantress.
Yes. I just beat the Black Knight with the Enchantress giving him some sort of magic buff of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize how much the game was like a disgusting cross between Mega Man and Mario, because the platforming has a lot of Mega Man elements to it, but it still has that Mario base of having the ability to affect the environment but not really affect your gravity or ability to move in air for the most part.
Yep.
I like the different tools. It's the one thing that I don't like is how instead of having lives, you drop money when you die, and it forces you to have to basically do the same level until you beat it. Like when I play games like this where you have different options, I like to try out each level that I have access to one at a time, and if I die I just try another level. But the game punishes you pretty harshly if you do that. You're gonna run out of money pretty quickly. It's not, it's not by any means.
Yeah.
So, I found, because at first that's what I was doing. I was like, oh, it's only a little bit of money. How bad can it get? But once I got midway through the game and was getting to the more difficult levels, I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this. I'm losing $1,000 at a time by, and had multiple instances where I'd unlock the merchant in level and not have enough money to buy the item. And the in-level items are so helpful for that level specifically.
Yep.
That missing out on them is, it makes it a lot harder to both finish the level, because obviously the platforming is designed around having that item, but also beating the boss as well.
Yes, that's definitely like Mega Man, where you need to have the opposite of the boss in order to beat it. But yeah, it's it has that sort of Dragon Quest style of punishment where if you die, you lose a bunch of your money.
Yeah, a bunch too, because it's a good chunk. It's not oh hey, a couple of diamonds. No, you lose 2,000 gold
until you get the armor that greatly reduces the amount of lost money.
See, the thing is, I never bought that armor because by the time I got to that point, I had a lot of money. So I bought the 6,000 armor, the one that gives you the powered up slash if you do 2 shovel jumps on an enemy.
Yeah.
And I've basically just been using that nonstop ever since.
I knew that I'd die a ton in that game, so I bought the cheapskate armor. No, I don't want to lose a third of my stash every time.
And along those lines too, as I was mentioning before with the game control, not money, but with the amount of times I've died in that game, it's you don't lose money, you lose materials, and guess what you need those materials for? Upgrades.
Yeah, it's how do we punish the current gamers and the younger generation? Let's make them lose stuff.
Exactly.
Because we're all so disillusioned by life that we're just if we lose a life, whatever. whatever. Just,
like, whatever,
just whatever. Just kill me anyway. But no, you start taking away money and materials. And it's like we're becoming a generation or two of just hoarders. Just like, no!
No, I need my materials, otherwise I'm fucked.
Be like Dragon Quest. Like, no, I needed that cowpat.
Right.
So... But yes, I mean, are you enjoying Shovel Knight at the very least?
Yeah, no, I definitely am. I like the soundtrack. It's very. That's a lot of where I'm feeling the Mega Man as well.
Jake Kaufman did a really great job on the score,
and it looks great on the 3D for the 3DS. Like, they did a really good job of like transitioning that over, because obviously the game wasn't originally designed to be on the 3DS, but it looks great on the 3DS with the 3D mode activated, if that's your jam. I know a lot of people are like anti 3D mode, but I think it really takes good advantage of it and like gives like great depth to the backgrounds and makes it just feel more there.
I'm very glad that you don't put the 3D on and suddenly have an urge to puke like 5-10 minutes in, because I know that when I had a 3DS and I put the 3D on, I'd just be like, okay, motion sickness, gonna just be like, no. So I'm glad. I was actually pretty curious at how that effect was gonna work, because I have it on PC. On PC,
sure.
PC and Switch. So
I wanted it on a mobile device because I felt like a mobile device would be, the way that the game breaks down into tiny chunks like that, I feel like
perfect.
That.
Yeah, that was one of the reasons why I broke my own rule about not owning more than one copy of the same game, because
just having that on the Switch feels like a definite good call.
And I can't wait till you get to the 3 additional full games.
Yeah, exactly. Because I was so confused because I was looking for just the game on the 3DS shop, and they didn't have it. They just had the collection, and I'm like, well, let me see what other platforms, how much it's going for, and the shop was selling not the 3DS shop, but Steam is selling it for just the one game for 20 or 25 or something like that, and I'm like, well, if I'm gonna pay $35-$40 for 4 games, and they're actual games and not DLC, might as well. So, but yeah, no, I'm interested to play all. I'm not sure if I'm going to play all 4 games straight through, or if I kind of get some other games and kind of pepper it in like that. But I'm definitely enjoying it enough that I would not. There's definitely a chance I will. Yeah, I'm not I don't dislike the game enough to just want to stop after I'm done playing.
Yeah, I really liked. If you get there from a story perspective, Plague Knight and Spectre Knight, they have some very, very cool backstory, weaving into the events prior to the events of Shovel Knight and during it. So I just recently started the final expansion, which is King Knight. And
okay, yep.
And that is pure silly. That is absolutely pure silly, and I'm very glad that Yacht Club actually fulfilled their entire Kickstarter promise,
which is amazing.
They set out with the idea of just making Shovel Knight, and they said that they listed these expansions as stretch goals, and And the Kickstarter raised so much money that Yacht Club was like, well, we have to make these now.
Yeah, this is the most successful indie title of all time, right?
Definitely one of them. So just a little history for you. The Kickstarter campaign was 2013. 2013, they wanted 75 grand. They got just 311,000. So they made enough money where they had to make these 3 additional games, and it took them 6 years to do it, but they did it.
That's awesome. That's awesome, and is like, you know, a great advertisement for Kickstarter for indie titles. Just to be like, you know, this is possible if you have the means, like talent-wise, to be able to make a game of this quality. Because like, this is definitely a game that is beyond a normal indie title of quality. Absolutely. Like, this is like on that same tier of quality that you would see of like a, you know, like true publisher taking a whack at this style of gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. It took them 6 years, and now I'm like, I wanted to ask the developer, because they were actually at PAX a few years ago, and I wanted to ask them then, like, what are you gonna do when you finally, you know, complete this thing? And you'd just be like, we're known for is Shovel Knight. What do we do now? But no, they
let the major parties have a bidding war on your first rights exclusivity on your next game, and then not even care.
Basically.
But yet, I mean, to your credit again, the soundtrack is absolutely amazing. It's one of those soundtracks that I can listen to on its own. It holds up very, very well on its own.
Yeah, I really like how you get pieces in the game and can just like have the bard play them for you whenever you want. Like, having that kind of easy access music box is a really smart idea for any game that has the quality of soundtrack that Shovel Knight does.
Yeah, it's I was like, yeah, I'm loving this a ton. I'm buying the soundtrack, and I did. And then each subsequent expansion's soundtrack. Like, yep, taking this.
Yep.
So, yeah, good choice, Spencer. Shovel Knight is an amazing game. So
yeah, I'm having a good time with it. I'm looking forward to the end. Although having not the level of Stockholm syndrome that Ryan's having, but it's definitely much more difficult than I was expecting originally. And I definitely lost my good share of money dying before I got back to a point where I had died and going like, fuck, no, I need that money.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's not Nintendo hard.
Oh god.
Yeah, it's not NES levels of stupidity for sure.
So,
like, you know, it's not like Ninja Gaiden 1 making me want to just like turn my NES into a garbage.
So.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So now it's Ryan and myself. You know, Ryan actually went last in the first half. I'm just going to yield and give it to Ryan.
All right, sounds good. So, actually, I'm going to go off the segue that you two guys were just doing with video games, and also going back to the whole Stockholm Syndrome thing. As I explained to you with Control, I have a very much love-hate relationship with that game. What games that you guys have played are games that are just like, you want to get through it because you like the plot with it, but it's just one of those what games have you played that are just like one of those games that are just like, once you get through it and once you get done with it, it's just like, why? Just, what was I thinking? And I'll actually give you another good example of that I played I think about either in 2013 or 2014. A game called Drakengard 3. This one was done by Square Enix.
Oh, I remember. I'm like, that's a name I haven't heard in years.
Yeah, I call this game also like that because the plot was amazing for it, and I had actually never even played any of the Drakengard series. And interestingly enough, the Drakengard series is also part of the same universe as another game called Nier Automata.
I know you love that one.
That was an amazing game to play, and its predecessor Nier was also really good. The Drakengard games are all within the same universe of it, and I think I don't know if I told you this before, but the Drakengard games were designed basically as a troll by Square Enix for all the people who love the Final Fantasy game. because the Drakengard games are all hack and slash based kind of games. The stories are amazing, but oh my god, the boss fights were the worst for that one. Because of a lot of that, it was real time. It was I believe they're called. What was it? But you had to press. I forget what it's called. So you had to press the buttons at a certain time. Like you had to time up certain button commands in order to actually keep going through with the attacks that you're doing. I forget what it's called, but that is a staple for Drakengard 3 to kill these bosses. And plus, as along the same lines of control, this game is not very forgiving to you if you cannot keep up with the difficulty level that it's doing. I died so many times with all the bosses, it's not even funny. And the worst part was the ending boss fight that you did. Because that is a rhythm-based fight, and we all know how fun those are.
Is there rhythm-based fighting before the final boss fight, or is that just like, oh, here's some stuff that you didn't want and we're giving it to you anyway?
Yeah, like Square Enix basically decided to troll everyone with that game. That's how bad it was.
Oh joy.
Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that franchise.
I liked it a lot. Again, that one gave me Stockholm Syndrome as well because I liked the plot, but battling and everything, I died multiple times before I could kill the freaking the bosses for that one. And I got so fed up with it a few times. I'm just like, okay, I'm quitting this. Otherwise, I ain't gonna throw the controller out my window. I just can't deal with it. So what games have you guys played that are like that level of frustration that you like how the game is, but you have a love-hate relationship with it?
I can go.
Go ahead.
I have one that isn't because of the gameplay, but because of the story. It's Metal Gear Solid 4. I really enjoy playing Metal Gear Solid 4 when you get to play it. When the game allows you to play it, it's a very good game. It's fun to play. It gives you a lot of options. You know, the sneaking is very detailed. You have a lot of good, like, weapons to use. You know, the gun porn is, like, the best in the series. And if you're into that kind of stuff. But, man, when the cutscenes start playing, oh my god. What the hell is going on? Like, I'm not gonna go too deep into the story for 4, but it's like one of the most ridiculous retcon jobs that has ever been done in any series that I'm aware of. Like, Star Wars fans want to complain about the sequel trilogies. They need to play MGS4 and then they can shut the hell up. But like every time I play the game, I'm just like blowing through the cutscenes, not looking at any of the like acts, the mission debriefs, all that stuff, because it's just like, why? But that's kind of where I'm at with that kind of experience.
Oh, let's see. What? Just trying to think of something pretty recent that I could probably draw out there. There was a platformer that I have definitely put into the I cannot beat this. Love its premise, but I just don't have the patience or the reflexes at the old age of 34 anymore to beat this. And the platforming game is called They Bleed Pixels. And I like the premise because it is definitely Lovecraftian based, and I'm a sucker for that sort of stuff. I love H.P. Lovecraft short stories, Edgar Allan Poe. I love those. So as far as the storyline goes, you play as a young girl, and she goes to an academy. She's sent to an academy. It's an academy for troubled young ladies, and
of course,
and she has nightmares, and she's affected by these nightmares. She transforms into these clawed creatures, and you have to go through these levels that are just full of monsters, but every time you wake up from these dreams, which are the levels, she always wakes with a grimoire, a magic textbook on her bedside table. And as the game progresses, she awakes from these nightmares that, like, her dream monster self is starting to manifest itself in reality. And she realizes this, and so she keeps trying to get rid of the book, but it keeps showing up on her table the next morning. So I really like the premise, but it has sort of reached the point in the game after I forget which level I'm at, because it's been a while since I picked it up, but it's just spikes everywhere, and chainsaw blades, rotary blades, spinning blades, and just a lot of stuff that you need to dodge. And it reached a point where I'm just like, I don't have the reflexes for this. After dying a few hundred times, because the game keeps track of this. The game keeps track of how often you die in each level. I just gave it up. I'm like, nope. There's going to be a broken monitor very soon. So, I'm sure people have beaten it, but I finally had to say no. Just resign myself to the fact that I'm not going to beat this, and end up watching a Let's Play to check out the ending.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely had games like that, but I'm way too stubborn to actually quit. Like, I'll just
I know you are.
I'll take like a month off and then come back to it, where I'll just like not play it for a while and let my brain like decompress the hatred. But like, I've had games like Ninja Gaiden 1 or Mike Tyson's Punch-Out for the NES that have just been like literal like year-long sagas of just trying to beat the game and failing miserably for month after month until I finally cracked the code, so to speak.
If I didn't have the backlog that I do and a bunch of other games that are vying for my attention, I might do the same for this, but I'm just like, you know what? I've got better games to keep me happy. I'm just going to move on, like Darkest Dungeon.
Right.
As hard as that game is, I love it. I absolutely love that game. Because see, you want to live and die by the RNG. Darkest Dungeon is a game for you.
I'm listening.
I believe it is out on most platforms now. If I have your attention, Spencer. Basically, it's dungeon crawl role playing.
Okay.
And the basic premise of this game is that you've inherited an estate.
Oh, yes, this one.
You've inherited an estate from a relative, and as you go through his papers and journal entries, you find out that he was basically trying to seek fame and fortune by excavating the dungeons and catacombs under his manor, only to unearth hell.
No, of course, like you do.
And basically released a whole bunch of evil Lovecraftian eldritch creatures into the world. But now you own the estate and the surrounding lands, so you have to recruit adventurers and mount expeditions to basically wipe the land clean.
Okay. That sounds interesting enough.
It's like the ways you have to, but because not only do you take physical damage in this game as you dungeon crawl, you also take mental damage. And in between the expeditions, whether you're successful or you fail them, you have to basically use the resources in your town to recover from those types of damage. Like, for example, if you're too stressed, if you take too much mental damage, how do you heal that? Go to the bar.
Sure. Obviously.
Right.
Or you take physical damage. You have to go to like the alchemist. Things like that. And again, you recruit adventurers whom you level up, and as they level up, you gain abilities and whatnot. But oh, by the way, permadeath is a thing in this game.
Yeah.
So if you get a party wipe and your recruiters die, you have to recruit new ones and start from scratch. So
that sounds very evil.
Oh, the entire game is massively evil. It took me, and I'm checking my Steam time, it took me 99 hours to beat this game.
Wow.
But I loved the story. Great story. Difficult, yeah. And again, you want to talk live and die by the RNG, this is a game for you.
Didn't Ron talk about this game at one point on one of our past episodes?
Yes, and I don't know, I don't remember his opinion on it, but I mean, I loved it. But it's out on basically everything. It's on PC, PS4, iOS, Switch, Xbox One. So
okay,
it's all there. So, but yes, in answer to your question, Ryan, I think They Bleed Pixels is my my love hate.
I think that counts as one of those games that's also just like what I'm going through with Control. It's like, I like the premise of it, but holy crap, am I gonna die a lot with it.
So, Spencer, you've already answered. You had Metal Gear Solid 4. I had They Bleed Pixels. So, cool. Anything else then from you, Ryan, or am I gonna have the last word?
Nope, I'm all good. I think it's your turn.
All right. I will have the last word then. My last topic for this. This I saw just a couple days ago while perusing Kotaku, like I do from time to time. Because occasionally they do articles regarding the world of speedrunning. And there were two that caught my attention, even though I am not a speedrunner, but I do like to see what the hell the speedrunners get up to, because the way they break games is a thing of beauty.
We have a lot of fun.
Oh, you do.
At our own expense.
You do. But there was an article I saw just this week regarding Punch-Out. It was an article talking about how the speedrunning community spent 5 years trying to beat one player and all of his records. Apparently there was a speedrunner by the name of Matt Turk, who basically achieved every single speedrunning record in Punch-Out back in the early 2000s. And he didn't have any video proof of this because, again, this was like 2003, and a lot of speedrunners lacked the equipment to record and upload speedruns, but he kept very detailed notes on how he got to his times. And
yeah, you can, at the very least, you could do like pictures of each battle, like end of each battle kind of thing, because it does have times, if I remember correctly.
Are you familiar with the YouTuber Summoning Salt and all the documentaries that person has done?
Somewhat, yes. Not like super in-depth familiar, but I have heard of and watched probably a video or two of theirs.
I've watched a few of them because, again, it's just like it's always that you have the game, you have the original record, and then the evolution of how times have come down. And I have not watched the one on Punch-Out yet, but it's just for a long time, a lot of players, initially thought that it was impossible because a lot of these records, as in many of a lot of games, especially the older games, required very precision frame rates and sprite positions, and you have to time like perfect, especially in a game like Punch-Out, where you have to time everything so perfectly and memorize the AI. So,
not to mention the RNG involved as well, because once like a lot of problems that people have when they take up speedrunning is like, you know, they learn a game, they get a good time, but once they try to focus on a high record time, there are RNG points in pretty much every game that will make or break your speed run, and you basically have to, you know, just pray to the RNG gods and hope that it gives you what you need, and then like a lot of the time it won't, and you have to just kind of reset from there, and it's something that you have no control over, and it's something that a lot of people, you know, they end up stop running either overall or just that game because they just get so frustrated because of the RNG points, and Punch-Out is definitely one of those games for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just there's a couple of speedrunners that I sometimes catch on YouTube that their quest to beat Super Mario Brothers in under like 4:55.
Yeah, SMB1, they actually measure it down to like microsecond at this point for record times because that's how optimized it is.
Yeah, I think we're down to like, I think we're at least at thousandths of a second now, at the very least.
Wow.
But if you're watching the stream while they're doing it, the amount of times that they reset, you can see them do hundreds of runs before they land on, you know, a good run.
And they still will lose the run later. You know, you could spend 20, 30 minutes, an hour just, you know, resetting at a particular point just trying to get the right RNG. Like you know, there are, you know, runners that I follow that, you know, they'll just have days where they don't get past a certain point in the run, even though they do like a 6-7 hour stream. But, you know, when it all comes down to it, it's not your day. And, you know, they just spent like 7 hours in the first like hour and a half of the speed run or whatever.
And so I'm just checking now. Punch-Out world record times for Punch-Out. So what's the official site? Is it speedrun.com?
Yes.
Yeah. So currently the world record time for single segment high score is actually by Summoning Salt. He was able to do it 14 minutes 55.250 seconds. So from beginning to end, 14 minutes.
Wow.
Almost 15.
Wow.
Yeah, there are a lot of ridiculous runs of that game. Like someone's done a blindfolded run. There's someone who did playing both the NES Punch-Out and the Super Nintendo Punch-Out using one controller to control both games at the same time and beat both games. It because of how simplistic the gameplay is, there's a lot of different things you can do with a run of that game.
Yeah, blindfolded, the record time is 20 minutes, 27 seconds. And I'm just like, no, this absolutely not. So just, and I've mentioned it before, like some of the things that speedrunners do to break games is just amazing. Like watching somebody beat Dragon Warrior in like less than 30 minutes. Like, how did you figure years of practice to figure out the exact combination of RNG right down to where the button placement and all that.
A lot of the time, people will find exploits or glitches by complete accident, and then the community, when they learn about this, will then just like grind the hell out of like the game, trying to figure out if that glitch or exploit can be taken advantage of in a manner that actually improves the speedrun time. And you'll have games like that have been around for, you know, a decade or more, and they'll get a new speedrun tech, and then the game's popularity will explode because there's that fresh world record out there that no one has yet, because, you know, you got to apply all the new strategy to all of the previous like world record time. And it's a really interesting like you're saying, like it's an interesting thing to watch, even if you're not watching someone who's doing like world record runs or anything like that.
That exact thing that you're describing just happened almost 2 months ago now. It happened with Ocarina of Time. Like, somebody found a glitch that basically allows you to teleport from the Deku Tree right to the battle with Ganon.
Oh, wow.
So, and it took about 16 minutes. But when you go from the Deku Tree right to animal form Ganon, you're still little Link, and you don't have the Master Sword. You have the Deku Stick. But the game is too stupid to realize this, so it treats the the amount of damage you do on a Deku Stick is equivalent to the damage you do on the Master Sword.
Wow.
And because you're little Link, you're so small that all you do is just literally stand under Ganon with the Deku Stick out, and it's just registering non-stop hits. Because you're just standing, there's enough room where you're just standing under Ganon, holding the Deku Stick out and hit.
Yeah, you don't even have to actually attack. It's just like him holding the Deku Stick in like its normal like setup is like at the perfect point where Ganon takes damage. So you just hang out, have a good time, and have some pig on a stick.
Wait, so it's basically like poking the bear and not facing any consequences for it?
Yeah.
Basically.
So that was about 16 minutes. Then, right at the first week, it was like February 3rd or something, that first week of February, somebody found a new glitch and dropped the any percent time from about 16 minutes to 9 minutes 56 seconds.
What?
Yeah, because the previous way was like, there's a skip that you can use to get past the kid who like blocks you from leaving the, like the forest, the Kokiri's.
Yep.
You can like skip by him, and then from there, like you go to the Temple of Time, and like you can glitch through the door, and then from there you can glitch the future, and then from there glitch into the Ocarina of Time is like a terribly coded game. It's ridiculous how glitchy and messed up that game is when you think about it.
Oh.
But to your point, Spencer, like you were just saying, like the previous world record time for this game was set about 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago.
Yep, there are so many like ridiculous categories for that game, just because of like you're saying, like the general runs or the world records are so established at this point that no one really wants to try and like grind them. You'll get new runners like coming from other games and like put up like a decent time and then just stop because it's like the leaderboard at the top is like just at a level of grind capability that is beyond most people's desires.
And then now somebody discovered a new glitch, and now you can beat the game in under 10 minutes. So now that's now the new hotness.
Oh.
So just some interesting news coming out of the speed running world, and one more bit of news that I saw today actually. I love the Games Done Quick charity event that the speedrunning community does, and because their Summer Games Done Quick has now been postponed because of the coronavirus, that's not stopping them. They're doing a specific speedrunning event April 17th through 19th called Corona Relief Done Quick, which they're going to be donating 100% of donations is going through a charity called Direct Relief. And what they do is they bring medical aid to people that are impacted by an emergency or poverty without regard to politics, religion, or ability to pay. So I'm glad that the speedrunning community that organizes the annual Games Done Quick and the Summer Games Done Quick, even though they've had to postpone the summer event, they're doing a smaller event in mid-April for.
Yeah, they're still taking submissions. For anybody who's interested, if you submitted to the original SGDQ event, they wiped the submissions, so you would have to resubmit if you wanted to get into this new charity event. I myself won't be submitting, but for those of you who have the interest.
Yeah, and I do like to occasionally watch, because again, just the way that some of these speedrunners break games that I have loved is it's art. It's
pretty much the only thing I watch on Twitch. I have some other channels that I follow, but for the majority of my time spent, it's watching people speedrun. So I definitely agree with you. It's some of the most entertaining stuff you can find, just because you got the competitive standpoint and never knowing what's really going to happen when someone's running the game, and then on top of that you get the whole community aspect that you would get from any Twitch community.
Yes. And I know, and obviously you are brushing up on your speed running as well as on your own stream, so
absolutely.
So shameless plug there for Spencer. It's Twitch TV/Silent Martyr. It's the same as your
Yeah, yep. Same, just exact same.
Silent Martyr. I do not speed run, but it's Twitch TV/Eroivis. So that, and me being relatively new to the streaming community. But yeah, hop on Spencer's stream, see if say hi to him, watch him as he tries to make Chrono Trigger his bitch.
Good luck with that.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely need it. It's easily the most input command heavy speedrun I've done so far. There's so much execution. It gets down to there are certain boss fights where if you're using the Berserker accessory, where if you aren't doing the inputs for the next attacks while the attack, the Berserker, whoever's doing the attack with the Berserker, you'll throw the RNG chain off completely and either lose the fight or lose tons of time in the fight. It's insanely heavy with all of your inputs, and I love and hate doing it at the same time, because it tests all of your skill and metal.
So what you're saying is it's a much better coded game than Ocarina of Time.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a few glitches that break the game, but not not like that. Any percent run for Chrono Trigger is 2.5 hours roughly.
So you're not gonna go straight from the first area to Lavos in 9 minutes.
No, that's the New Game Plus route.
Yes.
That's completely different, because that I actually have a record in that, but that one obviously opens up the teleporter at the beginning of the game, which you don't have access to in a New Game file. So,
all right. Well, that was all for me. So, if anyone else has anything to add, otherwise we're just gonna call it here.
I think that's a good stopping point.
All right.
Yep, sounds good to me.
So, if any of you out there on the wide world of the internet have any questions, thoughts, comments on what we've brought up today or on any other episode of downloadable content, feel free to let us know. You can go on our website, dlcpodcast.com, click on the feedback button, and let us have it. You can also go on our Facebook page, at Downloadable Content, or on Twitter at DL Content. And every single episode can be found on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, and Google Play Music, as well as the website. And as I said in the beginning, we are starting a new block of recordings, so if you want to be in on a future episode, check out the upcoming recordings, let us know. We're here. We don't bite. We're all friends here, so all there for it. All right. All that remains for me to do is to thank Spencer and Ryan for being on this episode with me. So until the next time, I'm Brian. Have a good one, everybody.